What's going on, folks? Welcome back to the channel with me, Clem Boogie. We're 2.5 weeks into the NBA season. I thought I'd give a little preview, a little breakdown, a little perspective. Also, tapping in on some bets and some marquee things that you should pay attention to as you place in those bets. But any event, let's get right to it. Well, folks, we're here. 2022-2023 season. The NBA has proven to be one big soap opera thus far. What can I say? You have your Lakers, you have the Nets, you have all these teams that had big aspirations. Mind you, everyone started 0-0, so I really don't understand what the big deal is. But then again, there's always the follies. There's people making excuses. There are injuries. There are contractual things that are not going right. They're just team gelling and team atmospheres and schemes that just don't seem to be vibing. We've already witnessed a coaching change with the Nets. We've already witnessed a player being suspended till they say 5 games, but I'm going to go with further notice until, a TBD situation. And we've witnessed a team where seemingly one of the greatest players to ever touch the ball, LeBron James, is hurt. He's been known as Iron Man, but his team, the way they've been playing, not so good. It took them damn near, I want to say, game 8 for them to get their first win, and it's still not looking promising. But anyway, it's a whole situation over there, amongst other things. However, we have witnessed other teams, such as the Utah Jazz, the surprise of the league, very big surprise. They trade away they traded away their marquee players, Donovan Mitchell to Cleveland, Rudy Gobert to Minnesota Timberwolves. And in turn, they got a ransom, King's ransom at that, for in return. They had draft picks, pick swaps, and all kinds of situations, player movements, journeymen, you name it. But somehow or another, the Utah Jazz, as we know it, 2.5 weeks into the season, are the number one team in the Western Conference. Let me repeat that to you. The number one team in the Western Conference. Yes, they have no stars there. They have people who have probably played more games in the rec league. I'm talking about LA Fitness, New York Sports Club, anywhere but the teams that they respectively came from. I'm not knocking them. Trust me, any NBA player at this juncture in their career, if you're on an NBA team, you can play. I'm just poking fun, but I think Danny Ainge, who is the executive over there, I believe he's the mastermind, which he always is. You can also congratulate him for the job that's going on in Boston. He's the reason why. He knows how to structure these teams. He also knows how to swindle other fellow executives and GMs to get him what he wants via draft picks or players or expiring contracts. But that's another thing for another day. But as it pertains to Utah, they held steadfast. They're winning. I don't think that's what they wanted in the cards. You can't really say tank, but we all know that's what they wanted to do. But anyway, as it pertains to other teams, Sacramento, they have a new coach. They have new life. They're playing defense in Sacramento. Who would ever thunk it? But they do have De'Aaron Fox. They have Sabonis. And they have Harrison Barnes, a very reliable veteran. And they have other pieces around them. They're young. They're spry. And they are going to be in every game they play each and every time out. But it is the West. It is always the situation with the West. You never know what the situation is. Right now, things are topsy-turvy. Even the defending champions don't look like themselves. And I'll tell you why. Steph Curry is Steph Curry. He's the greatest shooter, human being, species, anything you want to describe him as far as his human infrastructure is the best thing shooting the basketball since the beginning of time. We know that. His running mate, Klay Thompson, he can shoot. He's no slouch, but something just ain't right with Klay Thompson. I know we want that band back together, but something ain't right. I mean, you're talking about someone who's been hampered with injuries. I believe he had an ACL injury. Then following after the ACL injury, he had the ruptured Achilles. That's not fun. It's hard. The body can only withstand so much, and he's human. He's not bionic, he's human. But with that team, they have such a great infrastructure. They have the Jordan Poole. They have Andrew Wiggins. They have Wiseman. They have other players and pieces in place to kind of supplement and push throughout the regular season. Hopefully those guys get it together. Not to mention they had their own personal soap opera where they had to self-impose a little, telling Draymond Green to go away for a little bit. Yeah, we know. The punch heard around the world. And, TMZ somehow mysteriously got the tape of what went down in practice. And it pertained to Jordan Poole and Draymond Green. The punch around the world. But whatever. These guys are making millions upon millions of dollars. Me personally, I don't think Draymond Green is going to be there very much longer. He could be gone by the trade deadline. And if that's the case, I think that would be a big, big mistake for the Golden State Warriors. Simply because what Draymond Green gives you on a team doesn't necessarily translate in the box scores. His attitude, his overall presence, him being the enforcer of the team, the protector of the prize of Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. He sticks up for those guys, and he's always been there. He's the pride and joy. He's the heart and soul of that team. You trade that away, I don't really think Golden State's the same team that everybody's, thinking they are. Do they win those championships? Probably not. But he gives them that aggression. He gives them attitude. You need those kind of players on your team. If you played any kind of sports in your life, you understand that everybody has a role, and that's what's needed in each and every day. As it pertains to other teams, I'm a Knicks fan. Things are seemingly looking up. I wasn't too happy with transactions that we had made. I see that we had Jalen Brunson and things of that nature. He is very small, but he is crafty, very crafty. We've always had an influx of guards come in and out. Anytime someone comes to New York City, you have to be a little suspicious of what the turnout will be. They come out with big recognition, big praise, bells and whistles, things of that nature, and they seemingly just flop. New York is not easy to play in. New York City, that is not an easy place to play in. Then you're playing in sacred hollow ground, Madison Square Garden, where everybody, every eye, every camera, every light is on you. You either produce or people here, from the janitor to an executive to the little kid sitting in the press room, in the seating row behind the basket, to the person that's wiping the floors, will let you know that you are stinking up the joint. But anyway, the Knicks are currently, I believe, 500. So they're playing, pretty skillful basketball. They're in games. They are actually pushing people to the brink of, their talents and matchups that are placed in front of them. Then you have the Atlanta Hawks. With the addition of Dejounte Murray and having him matched up with Trae Young, viable combination. Very long. It adds that defensive presence that they've been needing for that backcourt. Personally, I think it's there to protect Trae Young. Trae Young is a liability on defense. Let's not sit here and kid ourselves. He's not guarding anybody. The man can barely guard a parked car. But anyway, they are viable players in the Eastern Conference. The Eastern Conference has some real players there. We talk also Cleveland Cavaliers. They acquired Donovan Mitchell. That team, surprisingly, I shouldn't say surprisingly, they actually have a lot of talent. They are legit 1 through 9. If you look at their roster, they can put up points. They can rebound. They are a well-rounded team. They will definitely be out there, shooting out the plays, running people off the floor. They're very young. I think the oldest player on their team is Kevin Love. And he's not really old by our standards, but he's old in basketball years. But he comes off the bench. I think he's the 6th or 7th man that comes off the bench. And he serves with utility and leadership for that team, which is probably needed to navigate their way through this grueling season. What can I say? The Brooklyn Nets. High expectations. You have Kevin Durant. You have Kyrie Irving. You have Ben Simmons. You had Steve Nash as the head coach. But, things change. Things weren't working out. So when things don't work out, you retract and you try to make things go through. Understand this. I don't know what the landscape is with the Nets, but what we can, understand and see, and it is also always going to be promised. There's going to be attitudes. There's going to be a lot of mood swings. It's going to be a lot of hardship. But as it pertains to the basketball side of the things, the Nets cannot guard anybody. That's going to be a hindrance for them. And I don't mean from the perimeter standpoint. They have no low post presence. Yes, I know they have Claxton as their center. He's not going to be able to stop anyone. He's not going to deter anyone. He's about as big as probably my nephew. My nephew is not a big person. He's skinny. Claxton is very skinny. He's not going to do it. You seemingly, who can you match him up with? When they run into problems with Embiid or Jokovic or Nurkic or anybody, any of these bigs that push through, it's just not going to work. It's hard. It's hard to bang. He doesn't have enough bricks in his back pocket. Cannot do it. Then you have, the odds-on favorite, the Boston Celtics. They had one of the bigger soap operas ever. Their coach was in the news for all the wrong reasons and still to this day continuously gets dragged. But that's not important, nor is it our business. It should have never came out. That is an HR situation, but whatever. As it pertains to the basketball side of things, they have Jaylen Brown and they have Jason Tatum. Those guys are spectacular. They're long, they're athletic. It's going to be a headache every night, all 82 games for anyone. You just have to deal with it. It's going to be hard. Then you have the veterans there with Al Horford, and you have Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart is gritty. He's never going to back down from any challenge as far as from any guard, point guard, or things of that nature. Then they had the addition of Malcolm Brogdon. Solid. That's all you can say. That's the sole thing that he brings. He's solid. He's sturdy. He brings leadership. He knows how to play. And that ultimately will just get them and veer them in the direction that they're continually trending to. There are a bunch of teams that, you'll see as the year goes on. With the LA Clippers, I don't know why everyone's so high on them. I understand they have a deep, talented group, but what can I say? Kawhi Leonard is not right. We've seen pictures. He looked like a Diesel, action figure when he was on the offseason. He looked big. He looked like he was himself working in the lab, getting himself right for the season. He started off in the season off the bench. Paul George looked like he just fine-tuned his game. He just looked so smooth. So what can I say with that team? But what is going to hinder that team is that their hopes and dreams and progression and their marker is all based on what Kawhi Leonard do they get, if they ever get him. Kawhi has been sitting out for the better portion, I think, 6 or 7 games. No one knows what's going on. I think everybody's alluding to there's something going on with that knee. And I don't imagine all that lifting or his body change or anything like that. If he's heavier, I'm going to tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. When you're heavier, your knees hurt. It makes it hurt even more. So if people thought that was a benefactor in some way, they're wrong. San Antonio Spurs, Pop said it best. Don't expect them to win a championship. However, don't let him fool you either. Those young guys over there, they want to win. They have a hunger over there. They might be young. It's not your customary Pop team, but with him at the helm, he's going to push and squeeze the best of what he can out of the group. Portland, Dame Lillard. What can we say about Dame? Dame is just he's an honorable dude. He's just so, he's solid, but it's not for Dame. I think after this season, he really has to recalibrate and think about the decisions he's making from the standpoint of the rest of his career. Like, he has all the money. Money should be no option for Dame Lillard. Loyalty is a fool's gold in this kind of sport. You're going to waste your talent away where there's no surrounding figures to get you to the promised land, which is the NBA championship. His best years were with his running mate at the time, CJ McCollum, and those two are no longer attached at the hip. They remain close, obviously. They're never going to forget what they produced and how far they were able to go. But as far as being able to get over the hump, I just don't see it. It's just going to be a hard push. Yes, they have Chauncey Billups as a coach. He is smooth, he's calm, he's collected, he's very, very in tune with all the angles that comes with a basketball game. But Dame Lillard, I'm telling you right now, brother, get out of town. As it pertains to the Memphis Grizzlies, I think they'll be fine once Jaren Jackson gets back. Ja, in my mind, is going to be a top 5 candidate for the MVP. They have a pretty solid team themselves. They're young, they run, they jump, they're exciting, very much exciting. They push the eventual champs, the Golden State Warriors, to the brink when they played them in last year's playoffs. So you can only expect more improvement as it comes. But, it's hard. The Western Conference is always filled with such great players, such outstanding stature and things of that nature. Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, this is an interesting team, and not for anything good. I just don't understand what, A, their front office was thinking trading for Rudy Gobert, and B, their scheme that they're presently presenting, moving Karl-Anthony Towns to the 4 and putting Rudy Gobert at the 5. I get it, Twin Towers. Guess what? It doesn't really translate simply because the ball has to stop at some point. Yes, they have Anthony Edwards. Yes, they have D'Angelo Russell. But they can't be your sole spreaders. Now you're asking Karl-Anthony Towns to take more three-point attempts just to seemingly keep the defense honest. That's not his job. I forget who the 3-man is, but I know it's a revolving door with that situation over there. But having Rudy Gobert, I just really don't see it. I really don't understand it. To top it off, you mortgaged your future by you did. You executed a trade where you literally mortgaged your future to the Jazz just for this man. Let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. Rudy Gobert could be standing 5 feet away from the basket. It is going to be a process for him to get that ball to the rim. That's just my take on it. I'm sure anybody that's watched basketball, period, has seen it. It's just not a pretty sight. But again, this is what the Minnesota Timberwolves agreed to when they made that exchange. As it comes to the NBA as a whole, people have to understand it's a long season. It's definitely a marathon. 82 games involved. Like I said, we're 2 weeks in. So some teams have been 13 or 12 games in. So we're there. You're going to see a lot of people, managing their team and things of that nature, taking rest days, making up injuries, whatever. But as it pertains to the betting standpoint, you can expect a lot of games to be on the overs, less unders. The dynamic of the NBA is to make it exciting. You're going to see a lot of teams taking an exorbitant amount of threes. You're going to see teams running back and forth, running up and down the court. So if you're expecting a ground and pound type game, looking for defense, and you're still living in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, you're sadly mistaken. A lot of these games, if you look at some of these markers in sports books, some of these games, I think the lowest you'll see is probably 220, and that's the total, where 220 was probably an admiration in the yesteryears. But, with all things come change. You have to understand change is a significant thing. It's inevitable. We're all going through change. So are these teams. Give them time. It is not time to press the panic button. I hear about people trying to trade this and trade that and do this, and if this one's playing or if this one's sitting out, you never know. You just don't know. You can't just be waving the white flag here and there and all over the place just because you're disgusted, predicated on one or few games. It's an 82-game season, ladies and gentlemen. Let's not get ridiculous. But with that being said, I'm going to come back to you in just 2 seconds, and we're going to talk about some possible picks for tonight's matchups.